Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I'm your host, Florence Adu, and we're back this week with part 2 of my conversation with Femi Taiwo. Femi is currently the executive director of LEAP Africa, Nigeria's foremost youth leadership development organization. Prior to his position at LEAP, Femi was the founding executive director of Eagles Hope Foundation, a nonprofit initiated by the Covenant University Alumni Association, where he led the organization to create and execute award-winning youth programs. Internationally, he has worked with GlaxoSmithKline Pharmaceuticals and at a social research consultancy both in the United Kingdom. He has extensive skills in program design and management, learning and development design and delivery, business development, strategy, organizational development, stakeholder management, and innovation management. With a personal mission of facilitating the transformation of individuals, organizations, and nations, he is extremely passionate about leadership and enterprise development, and youth-led development, which I think shines through immensely in our conversation. We're picking up this conversation with a little bit more why the where. How did Femi come to be living, working, and playing in Lagos?
I actually forgot to mention about, you were asking when did I come to really settle back in Lagos? So yes. I went for a master's in UK, then started working in the UK. And I was even just about moving jobs. And so I had all the visas settled and everything. I was there already and, about moving to a better job and all. But one thing I constantly did was I was always excited about learning what was going on back home. So I was constantly reading the dailies, spending my Twitter location was back in Lagos still, just trying to keep abreast of what was going on and all of that. And that was the time when the girls were kidnapped, the Chibok girls. So I don't know if people can remember correctly, but within 2 weeks in Nigeria, quite a number of things happened. The girls were kidnapped. There was one oral place found on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which was known for a site for ritual killing, and it was, so a lot of terrible things were happening and it was really a depressing time. And then I literally went to work that day, the day after the girls were taken. I didn't plan to quit my job, but I quitted my job. Like I literally was like, I can't be in London. No, I can't do this. I literally was like, no. It was just too much. I was like, I have to be back home and one way or the other be part of the solutions. That was that was what happened. So I remember my boss was saying that, okay, this is quite abrupt, this and that and that and that. And then they left my job open for me for 6 months. That, you know what, go back to Nigeria. But your job is open for you for 6 months. And even within that 6 months, they opened it up for another 6 months. Right?
They really wanted you.
They were like, if that adventure doesn't work, because that was actually abrupt, and so that was actually what, and I came back without a plan. I didn't have a plan. And immediately I came in, I remember that, in fact, before I came in, I had 2 weeks before I came in, I took my savings in the UK and then paid for another course. So I did an executive course, a short course before coming. So I literally exhausted my money. I came to Nigeria. I have a good network. So one of my friends, I remember, gave me his ATM card, said, Femi, you know what? When you figure it, just keep spending, charge all your expenses to this card, right? And then when you figure it out, whatever, if you want to give me back anything, give me back anything. So I was, so I remember within the first 3 weeks, I started volunteering. So I went back to some of the places I had supported. I started volunteering, helping them with their strategy plans, helping them with some impact assessments and all of that. Then ultimately got a role later. And then, but that was how I came back and I was like, you know what, I'm coming back to be part of the solution. So that's been the journey for like the last 6, 7, 8 years now. Because that was 2012, 2013.
Well, it's almost 10 years.
That was 2013, 2014. Apologies. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was how I
That was a bold statement. Good for you. I think also to be where you are, you had to been risk averse. And I think that's something that is key for leadership, is this idea of, we're going to just do it, diving right in and putting yourself out there. Oftentimes, and I think this is a lot, again, going back to the culture and the vestiges of the institutions that have been kind of the gatekeepers for African youth, is that the idea of risk is something that is foreign. So we don't necessarily cultivate that in young people. So I'm really happy to see that you've done it and you're an example of it for the young people that you interact with. So let me ask you a little bit more on the business side in terms of how you reach and maintain and have grown LEAP in your time at the organization. And so thinking about how young people and what they typically use to interact with each other. So we have this class thing, right? So we have young people who have devices and young people who don't have devices, and young people who, as you mentioned, are exposed and those who are not. So in terms of getting your story out and getting young people to know about what it is that you do, how does social media play into that, and how will it play into your growth strategy moving forward?
Yeah, I think that's not something we've done extraordinarily well, because there are a lot of opportunities of what we can do, and we're constantly interacting with how we can maximize those possibilities. So we definitely reach young people in different ways. Like you said, I like the way you started to say there are different kinds of youth in different places who don't have access, to some of their information or knowledge that's accessible. One of the things that's worked for us is embracing multiple channels very early to reach young people. If you use Facebook, there are some kinds of youth you will reach. If you use Twitter, there are some kind of people you reach compared to Instagram, compared to WhatsApp and Telegram, and even more recently, Snapchat and the rest. So for us, the traditional or the most popular social media platforms have been quite useful in helping us to reach young people online. So Facebook had its days for us, but now we're finding that we're doing much more outside of Facebook. On Instagram, then which we understand the importance of keeping your own communities. So one thing you'll find is that we have too many types of WhatsApp groups and Telegram channels for different kinds of things and different kinds of efforts.
Yeah.
And one of the things we also try to do is get the key contacts of some channels, because there's some really powerful channels, and if you can, put your information there, it will really go around, across the right people.
Right.
Then offline is quite an important strategy for us. We still have to recognize those who curate these communities and have access to offline communities. And so it could be student unions, student groups, it could be grassroots organizations, and clusters. And so for us, we basically recognize that a successful campaign is both a mix of online and offline, and exploring multiple channels to reach young people. So that's one thing that has worked for us. We are finding more and more that, obviously, we all know about the mobile penetration in Nigeria and across Africa. So for our e-learning, for instance, when we're trying to do virtual community of practice or run virtual programs, we recognize that we have to have a mix of low tech, no tech, and high tech.
Exactly.
Right. So while we have the LMS, the learning management systems, or Moodle or Thinkific and all of that, we still have to download videos and send directly on WhatsApp. So case in point, we have this project we've been running for 3 years in 5 African countries. And we've learned a lot because we have close to 1,000. These are not even relatively young people. These are teachers that are responsible for young people. So we have close to 1,000 teachers that we are trained physically in those countries. And then we were supporting, and coaching, virtually after the in-person training. And so for some countries, WhatsApp was a good one, was a good channel. For some countries, Telegram was a better channel. Ethiopia was one of those countries. WhatsApp, they literally preferred using Telegram, right, versus WhatsApp. And we find, obviously, internet is relatively expensive depending on the country you are in, and depending on, many of the times we're working with low-income beneficiaries, and internet is quite pricey for them. They will prioritize their food and their transportation versus data. And so in many instances, we have to provide data stipends and for them to even access. Here we have quality resources and materials they can access, and all these amazing recordings and animations and all these things they can use. But we still have a big digital divide. But beyond even data, the most basic digital literacy, we had to start training.
Exactly.
So there are quite a number of opportunities and hurdles, rather, that we have to surmount and cross to reach this kind of young people. We call them opportunity youth, right? Some people classify opportunity youth as those who are not necessarily earning or in any learning institution, right? Who are just outside the regular formalized systems, right? So you will ultimately have to do a bit of hybrid. So one of the things that we want to do in Leap Africa is we want to have clusters. So we're having conversations with some partners. We want to have centers closer to these communities.
Yes.
Right? Because you can't provide devices for everybody, right?
Exactly.
Neither can you give data stipends to everybody. But if we have clusters in some youth centers or some public schools where we have devices there and we have free internet there and we have the resources pre-installed and all of that, and then it's closer home and they can make use of those, we feel that that would be a good way to give a lot of access to young people to, access the training, the learning and development opportunities, the job opportunities, even the remote work. They might be able to come there to do. So I think data, internet, digital is now, we see digital literacy as a life skill now in Leap Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's actually where we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Digital literacy, it's not a luxury. It's actually you need it.
A necessity.
Right?
Exactly.
It's a necessity. So we realize that even much more. And we realize that we have to actually, if we're still doing leadership program, we have to bring digital literacy into it one way or the other because it's a life skill. I mean, our job is leadership and life skills. So we brought leadership, digital as part of the life skill, at least basic digital literacy. It's part of the life skills that young people have to develop. Because with that, the opportunities are enormous. A digitally literate youth has the agency to explore any opportunity and do anything.
Exactly. And the more they know, the more they actually demand it, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the service gaps that we see where there's not internet or not services because there isn't a demand, because there is not that knowledge to actually know how or want to use it. So I really like the idea of the clusters. My work is also, and I think COVID taught us so much, and I we had already known this, is that as much as we love the idea of mobile phones and tablets, et cetera, the masses, most people in Africa are on the ground without constant electricity, without constant data. And so we have to go to them. So we need to create these agents, which are your youth. That is exactly the model that will transform Africa. So if we have youth that are able to be trained and then be those centers of, going to a church, going to a room, sitting under a tree and teaching others exactly, okay, this is what this device is. This is how you use it, and steering them a little bit away. And I said that about social media because you're competing with agency to build yourself through volunteerism and creating talent and understanding your talent, and the culture of influencers, right? So if these children are watching influencers who actually typically don't have a talent, all they're doing is looking good. So it's creating this value system where to get somewhere fast, you do what these influencers are doing. To get somewhere sustainable, you have to build and really understand who you are to be able to then, maintain and be that other. So it's like we're valuing, what I'm hoping that we can do, and with organizations like yours, is to revalue celebrity.
Yeah. I like one of the things you said. You used beyond schools, and I agree with you that we actually need more youth centers. It's not something we have. I mean, I went for a photo shoot yesterday, and I saw in that area, I saw that there was a youth center, and I was like, "Ooh, we need more. There's a more local government." But we have to recognize that engaging young people, empowering young people, we need space, not just digital spaces. We need physical spaces across communities, and so. But guess what? The infrastructural deficit of creating these spaces is huge. We can't start building new centers everywhere and doing all of that. But we have to leverage existing dormant centers. And you mentioned faith-based organizations, churches. That's something we have in abundance in Africa, right?
Exactly.
And we ultimately have to get those things working for good. And part of the big mindset I really want to work to change in the next 6 months to a year is to help faith-based organizations understand that they have the C in church is CSR. Honestly, that's where I say it, right? You have a social mission. Yes, you might have a religious kingdom, mission, a ministry mission, whether it's a Muslim faith or Christian faith, but you have a responsibility to make society better. And then you yourself have to use your own time, your own thoughts, your own talents, your own treasures, and your own tools to make society better. And here we have a lot of real estate investments owned by faith-based organizations that are used once or twice a week, that are dormant and underutilized for the rest of the week. And we have to do much more. And the funniest thing is that the brand of faith in Africa has not really. I mean, I know that a lot of organizations, faith-based organizations, are doing a bit of humanitarian and a bit of social enterprise, and but it's scratching the surface.
Exactly.
Compared to what can be done, compared to what they're capable of doing. It's an afterthought. It's not a core part of their strategy. They have to see it as a core part. And helping to realize that shift is a top hurdle. I really don't know how we're going to do that, but I believe we can make that happen. That can be quite transformative.
And I think your youth army, I'm going to call them an army. It's really them now making that, because I think people have been making the case for churches to be more active across the world, right? And so, being more with more programs. I mean, I think the Catholic Church has been known to be very, active in doing youth, whatever programs beyond just the day-to-day in some other churches. But I think young people who are increasingly disillusioned with church can now, if they can find a way to then use these institutions as their new home, knowing that there's something in there for them. Because what they do know is that church is asking them for money and then just preaching that what they feel is inherently themselves is bad. That's when I talk to young people, that's what I hear. Like me being a youth, me wanting to be social, me wanting to express myself, a lot of that is looked down upon from the church. So I think the church needs to reevaluate how they interact, as you're saying, with young people and bring them back in.
I agree.
Because they won't survive otherwise, because more and more young people are not going to church. This is what I've observed.
Yes. And honestly, what you're saying speaks to the fact that young people want to be engaged. And if we don't find values-driven way of engaging them, vices will engage them. That's the truth. If we don't build centers where they can learn digital skills and see the possibilities of digital skills from the positive light, they would give in to the semi-formal and informal apprenticeship system of internet fraudster. Because many of those young people that end up becoming internet fraudsters had to learn, had to develop digital literacy in those smaller communities, those negative communities, to be able to do that sustainably, right? So they had to develop skills and all. But so we need more clusters. We need more of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of, let's talk about mindset. Let's talk about your mindset hack. How do you hack your mind? So what is your favorite or an innovative mindset hack? Now, this is one that you practice, one that you know of, or one that you can imagine.
Visualization, definitely. Visualization. So I'm a visual person. I'm a visual learner. So for me, I believe this. I know definitely that the soft copy precedes the hard copy of anything I want to accomplish or anything I want to achieve. So I embrace the soft copy as real as the hard copy. So any project, any program, any funding, any dream, any aspiration, I really, really live in the future tense. I win in my mind. I visualize success. I experience success. I have a taste of it. I live it. Then I just start 3D printing it with my actions and with my efforts, right? So for me, a big one is, so if I want to change my mood, visualization. That's one.
Yeah.
Number two is, you can never get too much positivity. So I love to find a way to inject positivity into my mind. So whether it's the right podcasts, whether it's the right music, listening to the right people, spend time with friends, but basically just making sure that I constantly feed myself, with it's garbage in, garbage out, basically. So if I can feed my mind with the right things, I would definitely have the right things to process in my mind, and I would produce the right things. Right. So those are the two biggest things for me. Visualization. I have a vision board app on my phone. I get push notifications around different things. I use the walls around me to put the right pictures, put the right images.
Yeah.
But even beyond those physical expressions of it, it's really living in my mind, and really, I do it as I utilize this even in the most simplest things. I can daydream about the meal I will eat at night and be very descriptive about how I will present it. How, what all the details, and for me then, and I produce that. So if I do that with a meal, I can do that with a funding opportunity. I can do that with a scholarship opportunity, or with the pursuit of a new partner and all of that. So it's more.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you said then you 3D print it and it becomes real, because that is the whole idea of innovation. That is exactly the crux of it. So I like that. Yeah, I do that too. I'm a visualizer. So, and it typically, as you said, when it purely materializes in my mind, then I'm like, yes, that's exactly the path. That's the way that I'm going. That's the way we're gonna proceed. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where does Femi see himself? And whether that's with Leap or not with Leap, but where do you see yourself? And also, where do you see Leap in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so let me start with Leap. Leap is at a very interesting junction, because this year we're going to be 20, like I said, and we're revising our strategy this year and our approach this year and trying to even raise more resources. We've had a bit of extra capital investment in the last couple of weeks, a lot of interest and attention locally and regionally and internationally. So many of the dreams we had, we're having more resources to do them, even in this at this phase of our life. So I see Leap being, we had a retreat with the team 2 weeks ago, and at the core of our strategy, which we are revising and just fine tuning and making better, we have this ETA strategy, which is the backbone of our work. We want to be an ecosystem builder. So we want to, so ecosystem building, the T, thought leader, and the A, advocate. So we are still going to continue with that ETA strategy, but we're going to define the how, and be more intentional and ambitious with how we do that. So when I think about our role in the ecosystem in Africa, in the youth development ecosystem in Africa, I see us as a catalyst, right? So I see Leap playing more than ever before a catalyst role in the youth development ecosystem. So whether it's catalyzing change in the ecosystem through knowledge production and thought leadership. So we see it from the lens of various C's: capacity building in the ecosystem, building capacity of other youth organizations, other youth enablers. So capacity building is one. The ecosystem is quite fragmented. So connecting the ecosystem is another. We want to bring more capital into the ecosystem, especially in Nigeria, where quite a number. So we have this big brand, this good brand that many people are willing to identify with and work with. And then we can attract a lot of resource. And then, so we see ourselves more in the next couple of years subgranting. So in fact, that's already happening this year. This year, we are going to be subgranting almost $1 million, within the next 1 year. So that's this year into next year. So that's quite new for us. So in the ecosystem, we want to make case for more resources. And many times these resources, they don't want to give it to smaller organizations. They want to give it to trustworthy organizations and all that. So we are leveraging the influence we have to attract more resources and empower many more youth enablers to reach more young people and to solve the problem. So you will see us being a catalyst for young people, big catalyst, and in the first 20 years, Leap was actually we were more about do the quality work and not talk too much about the work. That was actually, it was not documented, but that was our default mode, right? So you won't find us making noise in the next 5 years, but you'll find us actually, because we have to tell our story more, and we have to use storytelling to really drive behavioral mentality, of the change in mentality that we seek, the change in culture and all of that. So you see us doing much more, using creative ways to share what works, and to catalyze change, basically. So that's on the Leap side. So you see us doing more of catalyzing things in the ecosystem, being a catalyst, whether by helping people to develop their capacity, providing the capital, connecting the different actors and players, and playing key advocacy roles. So one of the things we're doing is we're launching a leadership institute, or we've launched the virtual side, but we're going to start building the physical structure on the Lekki axis. So it's a Pan-African Leadership Institute, center, and all of that.
Wonderful.
So there's a lot of that coming alive more and more and more. So that's on the Leap side.
Is most of your funding and support coming from Africa, or is it coming from multinationals? Can you say that you're definitely attracting Pan-African funding resources?
So unfortunately, not at the moment. That's where we want to get to. Actually, that's part of quite a number of the meetings we have planned for this year with the organized private sector, HNIs and the likes. We want to help to tap into and help to even bring Africa philanthropy alive more, right? Unfortunately, what you find is that, honestly, a lot of the development dollars driving change on the continent is coming from outside the continent.
Yes.
I mean, yes, now many of these organizations might now have local offices on the continent, but they're still foreign organizations. And that's the unfortunate truth. But there's a lot of resources in the continent to change the continent. And there's a lot of resources with those in diaspora, to transform the continent. And so we have to, that's one thing we have to do more of as an organization and even as an ecosystem, to help young people. So now we're having a lot of the young people right now, we're having more unicorns, a lot of young people are building wealth and growing wealth. Yes. And there's a lot of financial literacy awareness amongst even the young people in Nigeria, across Africa, and even those in diaspora. But we need to also help them to understand and find formal way to give back.
Right.
Because we can do much more if a million young people give consistently versus just periodically. More can be done. So we need to help this new generation of millionaires and new generation of wealth builders to realize that they don't have to wait till they are in their 50s to float a foundation, and they don't even have to float a foundation, but they can find the causes that and the organizations they believe in, and find ways to give back, systematically into initiatives that they believe in, and do that consistently, no matter, and then scale that up and grow that up, as their income grows. But we need that even for the average middle class young African.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So your money is not just going to your church and your mosque, but you also have, as part of your giving plan, some causes that you believe in. And we really, I keep saying this. It's unfortunate that the third sector has an underdeveloped. The third world countries have an underdeveloped third sector. Here we are, we have quite a number of third world countries, but our third sector is actually not fulfilling its potential.
Exactly.
It's not, right? So there are a lot of opportunities in the social sector, and we can tap into that. So unfortunately, Leap Africa, we're still, like, I would say, there was a time that we used to have close to 30 to 40% of our income from Nigerian corporates and the like. But that has shifted. And so we're trying to really do much more, not for ourselves, but even do much more, like I said, advocacy to bring more resources into the ecosystem, and from organized private sector. And for them not to just see CSR or as an afterthought, and all of that. Yeah, so that's for Leap Africa. For me, that phrase, facilitating transformation of individuals, organizations, and nations, is my life mission. I might not be able to answer specifically what I will be doing, or what you can be sure of is this: that within the next 5 years, by God's grace, you will find me still facilitating transformation of individuals, organizations, and nations in bigger ways, right? In bigger ways, right? So whether it's by sitting on boards and making big decisions, building wealth, I actually want to do more. I've worked more than a decade in the development sector. I left the private sector, and more, as much as I believe, and I know that we're still scratching the surface in the indigenous third sector, development sector in Nigeria and Africa, I still believe a sustainable way to drive the change that we seek is through enterprise. The private sector has a lot of parts to. So on one hand, I see the potential of all the sectors doing more, and I want to be part of unlocking that potential. So I see that the private sector can do more in driving the transformation of Africa. I see that, obviously, the public sector, the government, they are meant to be their full-time occupation and job, right? But they can do more, and of course the third sector. So I see myself. I can't say specifically because the opportunities are enormous and the possibilities are just everywhere there. But you'll find me helping to facilitate the transformation of the continent at bigger rooms, bigger spaces, bigger decisions, bigger budgets, and the likes.
I can see it. I can see it. I can see it. Like I can feel the energy and I can see the wheels turning. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Wow. I thank you so much for all the time you've given. I'd love to have you back to talk more about solutionscaping, because that is something that is so near and dear to me, particularly in this youth space and the education space. Before that, I want to ask you, who are you? You kind of started to hint at it. Who are you when you're not leading youth and developing programs and being a strategist? Are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Or are you a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens?
So I like this question. One part I typically don't answer is the favorite part. I basically explore, right? But in line with being a visual person, I watch, right? So when I'm not working or doing any of those things, and those things typically take a lot of time, because even in my trying to chill out with friends, they're trying to pick my brain or trying to make me strategize and all of that. But yeah, I do watch a lot. I love watching movies and series. So you find me, my Netflix is always on. The subscription is never failing, and Amazon Prime, so it's always on. Right. So and because I appreciate diversity, and so I can watch all genres. I basically watch everything. Right. I literally would go there, scan through it, and find what works for me. Right. But some of my favorites would be crime and legal series. So that's one. What am I watching right now? That's a good question. I'm watching season 2 of Bridgerton. I get bored quite easily, so I can be watching 10 things at the same time. That's why I said I don't have favorites, right?
Right.
So I'm actually, as we're speaking right now, I'm going to my Netflix on my phone, and then I can call out. Another thing I do is I actually sometimes I can watch something, and the next day I've forgotten the title of what I watched.
Yeah, me too.
For me, it's about just distressing and enjoying the moment, and not necessarily, So what am I watching right now? So like I said, I'm watching Bridgerton. I'm watching Unauthorized Living. I realized
Unauthorized living.
It's a crime family that wanted to transition out of drugs and clean his business, but of course a lot of hurdles to cross. So there are a lot of all those foreign, Spanish, Mexican scenes, and that. So on my screen, in the last week, I've been watching a bit of Unauthorized Living, White Princess, Bridgerton, Friends. And I like watching documentaries too. So I'm presently watching the John Wayne Gacy tapes. It's about So, but I think my all-time favorite is things that have to do with things that kind of ignite the change agent in me. So I mean, even though Queen and Slim, I don't even know Queen and Slim, the movie. So I'm watching that again today. Actually, I'm going to finish that today. Even though it's not necessarily a real life story, but just seeing all the injustice and anything that just speaks about the injustice that the world has experienced or the world is experiencing, it's one of the things that gets me. I relax, but I also get energized. Learning and coming out of that system. So for me, it's that diversity. Podcasts, I love Johnson Maxwell because I work in leadership. So Johnson Maxwell, I'm a fan of Johnson Maxwell anytime, any day. I'm a fan of Miles Monroe. So that's one thing you constantly find me coming back to, Miles Monroe videos and podcasts. Yeah. So, and of course, how to build this. And I said what I said. That's a Nigerian podcast, one of the leading podcasts. I'm sure you know that. I said what I said. And so I basically just listen across board.
Nice.
And I love taking a walk. How I relax is I'm considering investing in a beach resort because I just realized I love going to the beach. So this year I've gone to the beach much more than any other, as in if I could calculate all the times I've gone to the beach in my lifetime, I've definitely gone to the beach more times in the last 4 months this year compared to I live on the island, so I live close to the beach, right? So 10 minutes drive in whatever direction I can access a beach. So that I found this private beach resort, and they basically know that I'm literally a stakeholder now.
Right? It's like, I'm coming. I don't know what you say, but I'm coming.
I even try to walk on the beach once a week now. So I go there and carry my laptop and chill there. But I'm typically there. I love the sound of the waves, the ocean, listening to podcasts, watching my Netflix on the beach, relaxing the breeze. So that's how I relax now.
That's I'm a beach girl too, like most definitely. Femi, this has been so wonderful. Any last words that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think one thing that COVID, the whole pandemic taught us is that, or reminded us of, is the fact that life is fleeting, right? So so I would say one of the things I tell people is dream bold, dream aloud, dare bold. You have nothing to lose because you're going to lose your life anyway, right? So give expression to all your talents, all your gifts, all the possibilities nudging within you and lurking within you. Just give expression to it, and do it bigger, do it better. That's what you have to do. And for the young people out there, be youthful and be useful, basically. So that's a mantra. Youthful and useful.
Yes. Youthful and useful. I love it. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Femi, this has been wonderful. And listeners, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us each and every Tuesday with new episodes at globalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please write a review, share with your friends. It helps other people find good content. So until next time, bye for now.